stress raises your blood sugar. I thought this was really fascinating. I remember looking at this, looking at my blood sugar, like obviously many times a day when I wore the monitor. And I remember there was a conversation that was kind of heated and I was a little amped up. And I look at the data afterwards and my blood sugar goes up just from being in a heated conversation. And I just thought that was fascinating. It just shows you how all the systems are at play.
This podcast exists because I love talking to people and I love going deep. The purpose is to plant seeds of inspiration. We enter a space of vulnerability and relatability. And what you realize is that we are so much more alike than we are different. To quote Ram Dass, we're all just walking each other home. And this show is just one step. I'm Danica Patrick and I'm pretty intense.
Welcome to the Pretty Intense podcast. On the show today, I'm giving you recaps and lists, and everybody loves lists. So I've got a top 10 list of my top 10 things I learned about health in 2021. I have the 6 biohacking tips and tricks that I'm sticking with, and then a top 5 list of general life approaches that are the most important to overall wellness in your life. So it's a really dense information. I think that hopefully there are some takeaways for you. Again, 2021 has been a huge health journey for me. But I feel like I've grown a lot in a lot of different ways. So anyway, all those lists, if you like what you hear today and you want to hear more, make sure you click on the subscribe button. 2021 has been very much a health journey for me. 2020, I had the year-end, top 20 lessons of 2020. And I felt like I got a lot of them. And it doesn't mean I didn't get lessons this year, but the really predominant thing that I've been dealing with this year has been health. So a quick overview of what led it there was that my cycle was delayed, December, January. Then I kind of skipped a couple, February, March. And now I went to Egypt, and I do think that might have played an element. When you travel abroad and you shift times of day. I mean, I think that can definitely make a difference. But I would say that there was probably just issues going on. So anyway, then I decided I need to go see at that point in time, only knew OBGYN. So I was like, all right, cycle missed, skipped. I should see an OB. So I went and I got some tests done to check my hormones and see if things were off. And he was like, oh, your thyroid's off. Then he's trying to chase it down with, I tried a natural thyroid medicine. It made me feel sick and, just all kinds of stuff. And he was like, you should probably see a functional doctor. In the meantime, had interviewed Ben Greenfield, and I asked him, what would I, how could I get the information of how should I eat? When should I eat? How should I work out? When should I work out? All the details, nitty gritty based on some data. And so he recommended 5 or 6 tests. And so that kind of all was happening simultaneously with getting a functional doctor. The functional doctor came just after he recommended those things. So I ordered all the tests and I got them, and which was great because it's what she would have ordered anyway. And so she did add on a couple more, which we end up talking about a lot in my health download with Ben. But one of them was a provoked heavy metals test. So we go into detail on what that is. But it basically showed that I had really high levels of mercury. I had other elevated elements too, like lead and thallium and cesium and something else. And anyway, so metals were an issue. But basically it led into going into a gut protocol for 3 months because I had leaky gut and everything was wrong. Wrong meaning inflammatory of some sort. And then after that was about getting into a chelation cycle, which is where you get the metals out of the body. Again, Ben and I talk a ton about that in the episode. But in the middle of it all, I ran a marathon. So marathons are really hard on the body. Running I think the highest I saw, I think I was doing my 16 or 18 mile run, and I was here in Arizona, and I didn't have to do all my long runs in Arizona. thankfully, but I did do quite a few. And it was like peaked at like 109 degrees. And it was like, I would run from like sunrise and then just however long it took. So 3 hours to do this. And I mean, it was just super damaging on the body. It's just really hard, and it's really bad for, making leaky gut and gut issues worse. So I ran a marathon. So then we couldn't do the chelation until after that. And so that's kind of like what the phases were. But now what I'll say before I get into some of the lessons that I've learned this year is that I remember when all this started at the beginning of the year and hearing about the thyroid I think it was in April. And I was like, oh my God, that's the answer. I have been suspicious that something has been off with my hormones for years. And I remember a few years earlier, it was like beginning of 2018, I had like changed my job, changed my relationship, changed my living circumstances. So much stuff had changed. And I had gained a few pounds, and I was like, I wonder if this is just, age. My hair doesn't seem quite the same. Like, is it age? Maybe it's because I'm not racing anymore. Like, there was all kinds of things, and I just attributed it to that. It was nothing super dramatic, but it was noticeable to me. And being really, really into health and wellness, like, I pay really close attention to my body. I'm pretty body aware. And so then when that came through, I look back and I'm like, man, it is when I go through something really emotional. So the beginning of 17, it was like, it always seems to fall somewhere between like 4 and 6 months after emotional stuff. So November of 17, like everything changed, end of November. And then, I started noticing at the beginning of 18, like March time, April. And then with this, I had a, really bad breakup in the middle of 2020. And then like November-ish, I remember thinking, man, something feels like it's shifted again, like a little bit more weight gain, a little bit like even my face didn't even look the same. There's just so much stuff that was shifting. And then the cycle was the thing that really got me into the doctor, because I would give myself the same attitude that I would give other people, which is just try harder. Like, maybe you should just do this. Maybe age means you just can't eat as much. Maybe it means you need to do try a different kind of training. And I guess the kind of the sum of it all is I would just say, if you feel like something's going on with your body, because I literally thought to myself, maybe something's weird with my hormones. And especially if you've had really big life changes, job, living, illnesses, breakups, all kinds of stuff, anything that's going to be emotionally taxing, just be aware that it's not just happening up here, it's happening everywhere. And so that'll be kind of part of one of the big lessons from 2021 with the health journey. But listen to the body. You're really smart. You're really intuitive. And I think that we're in a phase and an era in culture where we're being asked to tap more into that and listen to that more and more. So anyway, that's my high level overview of all the things going on. And again, Ben Greenfield and I went into it, but I mean, I've been getting, lab draws and tests just all year. I mean, basically from April through, the whole year, it's just every month or even more often. And sometimes there's 2 months off, but it's just labs and labs and labs. And it takes a long time. So I'd say, be patient. That's what I've learned. If I would have thought to myself in April of 2021 that, oh my God, this one thyroid pill, boom. I joked. I'm like, it's my diet pill. Because when your thyroid is low, it's basically like the controlling function of your metabolism. And it's just like, if I would have known how much more was coming on the heels of that, I would have been intimidated. But I think it's like wrapping your head around the idea that it's going to take time, and it takes time to chase it, and that all the systems overlap. So don't get overwhelmed. Just understand that the health journey is a lifelong one, but it's worth it. I'd like to go into the top 10 health lessons of 2021. So the first one I'm going to start with, lesson number 1, rest. Rest is just not something that I'm very good at. It's not, I'm always thinking to myself, try harder, do more, do another workout. I mean, shoot, in my book, Pretty Intense, I write about 2 workouts a day. And, I'm just all about like putting in the effort. And at the end of the day, there's so much so much good that happens internally as well as externally with the rest. I mean, even just from a physicality standpoint, when you work out and tear those muscles apart, like you're kind of in a state of inflammation, never mind what that does to the insides with adrenals and cortisol and all that. It can get, I think it just really was detrimental to me to do so much for so long. Like being someone that, I mean, wrote about no rest days. Like I don't take rest days. They naturally happen and they do. It's not like I don't ever take a day off, but I used to just think they just happen. And so, my life is a little bit more structured now. I mean, I used to structure it in a way that I'm home a little bit more. So, I have to really force myself to take a rest day, but I am learning how critical they are. And then coming back after rest, I mean, my God, you really do feel good. Lesson number 2 is walk after you eat. So I used a continuous blood glucose monitor this summer for a couple of months. And it was just so informational. And what it's obviously telling you, it was like you'd scan it and you could look at your current situation on an app. And I would see that after you eat certain foods, of course, your blood sugar rises. And if I would go for a walk, it would blunt it or stop it. It was almost like a ticking time bomb. I'd look at this thing and I'm like checking. And all of a sudden I'm like, oh my gosh, it's going from 80 to 90 to 100 to 110, 120. And you're like, get walking. And so, it's like, you want to see what the food does to your blood sugar to see if it spikes it. But then it's feel like it hit a critical point. And as soon as you start moving around, it totally takes it down. So you can kind of back to back this with foods, but walking after you eat, I mean, in the health and wellness, they call it postprandial, so it's super important. It's really good it's just really good to blunt that blood sugar response so that, it doesn't spike. On the heels of that, lesson number 3, eat your fat and protein at the beginning of your meal. So this is another thing that I learned from the blood glucose monitor is that the order of the food that you eat is really important. So if you eat your carbohydrates first, it hits your body first. And so eating fat and protein, but really, guys, there was like a lesson definitely in like making sure that there's fat in the meals. I could eat a meal that was like chicken and spinach kind of thing. And it would spike my blood sugar more than other meals. And I'm thinking like, it's just chicken and spinach. And that's because, your blood does change with protein. It's like fat's the only thing that doesn't have any effect. But protein does have somewhat of an effect, and carbohydrate has even more. So I'd say make sure that you eat fat and protein at the beginning of all your meals to help with your blood sugar response with food. Lesson number 4 is fasting windows. So lesson number 4 is 12-hour rest periods between eating windows. I mean, I've done so much deep diving into women and fasting windows, and there's some that do OMAD, which is one meal every day, one meal every day, and then there's some that do like 18-hour fast, some 16-hour fast, 14. And really what the true like most beneficial window is 12. And in my review with Ben, he definitely says that for me, and especially if you're a woman in your reproductive years, that fasting window getting too long can be detrimental to the body and to your hormones. So 12 hours of rest between eating windows. And then the benefit of 4 hours between meals. It actually kind of used to be something that I would think in my head, because I would eat and then I'd think, man, I'm kind of hungry. And I'd look and I'd be like, man, it's only been 2 hours though. I should probably hang on a little longer. So I would instinctively always think 3 or 4 hours. But 4 hours is the point in which your stomach has been able to like turn over the bacteria. And so if you eat on top of that, which is snacking or just having meals too close, the gut bacteria doesn't have a chance to do its thing and clean out. And that can lead to more bloating. So a little add-on is that, yes, I mean, the blood glucose monitor helped me learn to not snack too, because if you have anything to eat, you needed to check it, and everything you ate did something to your blood sugar. So, 12-hour fasting windows, between your fasting windows, and then 4 hours between meals. All right. Lesson number 5, alcohol reduces recovery overnight. And I learned this from wearing a Garmin watch and training for the marathon. And, honestly, one glass of wine can disrupt your sleep. And of course, the closer you are to bedtime, the worse. Cause like if I had a glass, before, or like early evening, before I ate, and that doesn't really matter. But if you're drinking a glass of wine after you eat and going to bed, even if it's a couple hours later, that wine definitely has an effect on your sleep. And so what I would see in the data is and a lot of you wear wearables, I'm sure. If you give a crap about this interview at all, it's because you care about health and wellness and you probably have a wearable. But if you don't, or if you isn't something you pay attention to, is your HRV, your heart rate variability, or on the Garmin, it was your body battery. You could see just how elevated your heart rate was for so many hours into the beginning of the night. And then finally, halfway through the night or so, it drops off, and then you finally start to get recovery. But it really is detrimental. So if you're kind of on the fence about that glass of wine after dinner, just skip it. Like it really, really does reduce recovery. And if there's one thing that I feel like is probably the most common, like number one thing to do for your health, is to get good sleep. So I make wine, but I still would say, like, skip that one glass and just save it for that night that you want to hit the bottle, Just kidding. Maybe not. Maybe I do both. It's just life. Don't take it too seriously. Okay. Number 6, sweating. So number 6 is all about the sauna and learning just about, I feel like back in the day, I used to hear about, sweat the toxins out. And I just kind of used to giggle and laugh. Like, I don't know if that's just something people said. But getting into, the heavy metal detoxification that I have to do. And of course, there's a lot to be learned too, about, it's really good for cardiovascular health. I think it's Dr. Danica Patrick talks a lot about the benefits of heat exposure and infrared saunas. But even when I've wore my Garmin in the sauna to see what happens with my heart rate, once you start getting hot, same thing with a bath, your heart rate goes up. So there's cardiovascular benefit to just sitting in the heat. Your body has to work a lot, but in the nature of detoxification, it does help. The way we get rid of things from our body is sweating. So sweat, poop, pee, all those things, anything that gets out of your body, that's getting rid of toxins. So that can be really helpful. And so it's something I learned a lot about. The natural way is definitely just to get out and get moving, get sweating, go in the sauna. And then if you want to upregulate that to the next level, you'd incorporate binders. And you would take something like a charcoal pill, or there's other supplements that include things like clay and things like that. Because when you liberate the metals in your body, you want them to have something to grab onto so you can get rid of them, as opposed to being redistributed in the body. Lesson number 7, stress raises your blood sugar. I thought this was really fascinating. I remember looking at this, looking at my blood sugar, like obviously many times a day when I wore the monitor. And I remember there was a conversation that was kind of heated and I was a little amped up. And I look at the data afterwards and my blood sugar goes up just from being in a heated conversation. And I just thought that was fascinating. It just shows you how all the systems are at play. You just because you're not running, or just because you didn't eat just because you're not lifting weights and doing something super intense, because intense activity does raise the blood sugar, because your body's going, we need to get this sugar readily available so that we can use it for the workout. And it's not from eating a sweet potato or banana or oatmeal or something like that, that's spiking the blood sugar. This is purely just my emotions. So I think that's why, it points in the direction so much of meditation and mindfulness practices and whatever you can do to stay calm. So yeah, that's a bad news. Stress makes your blood sugar level go up. Lesson number 8, walking lowers the blood sugar. Okay, walking does a whole bunch of things, but walking is like walking I think is underrated. It's a powerhouse tool. You can do it as much as you want. You can walk as much as you want. It's a low impact, low exertion thing. And what I found fascinating was that it would actually lower my blood sugar level where, super intense physical activity spikes it. This was actually lowering it. Even if food wasn't even at play, it lowers the blood sugar. So walking is really good for that. It's good. You can do it all the time. You're getting vitamin D, which is so essential. I mean, I feel like in the last couple of years, I feel like vitamin D is something that we've been hearing so much about, is how beneficial that is for overall health. And you're out in nature. Like there's very little that can go wrong with walking. It's a really, really, really great thing. And plus I use it as an extra benefit. I always take the dogs with me. They need the activity too. So get out there, get the sunshine, get it directly onto you, get it onto your skin, absorb some vitamin D, and do as much of it as you want. Lesson number 9 is the benefits of red light. So red light, I got the Juve red light. And as I learn more about it, I'm happy to try things, even if I don't necessarily always know exactly what it does. But as I get it and then I learn more about it, it helps to repair and strengthen the mitochondria, which is the powerhouse of every cell of your body. And it gives you energy. It's like what the energy force is within every cell. So the red light, and it's mimicking an aspect of the sun. So that's why the recommendation that Ben gave me was to do it at the beginning of the day and the end of the day, sunrise, sunset, to mimic the sun. It's a great time for your body to absorb that frequency. So red light is really good for the mitochondria. And then on the contrary, as a little add-on, blue light. So I got some blue light blocking glasses, and they're cute. They don't have to be ugly. I think I got Felix Gray or something like that was the company I got them from. I ordered them off of Goop. I mean, what doesn't Goop have? And so blue light helps to, the reason why you want to wear it at night is because it's killing the blue light frequency. But the other side of it is that it wakes you up. So, it's not that blue light's always bad. It's just that if you want to reduce any of it, it's better to do it at night because you want to activate your melatonin. You want things to start shutting down, and you don't want that stimulating frequency to get into your eye and affect your hormones. So, blue light, and it also disrupts the mitochondria a little bit. So, but let's just stick with blue light wakes you up, and reducing it will help you sleep better at night, which is why they always recommend the best time to wear your glasses is at night. So I've started to do that. And lesson number 10, our whole body, there's just one system. The body is one system, and everything matters. I used to look at the body as being like, I had my emotional bucket. I have my energy bucket. I have my mental bucket. Like I have all these different energy systems working, and I could tap any of them at any time. It was just that I didn't want to double down on them. Like, if you've got a lot of mental things going on, okay, like I can't handle another thinking activity, right? Or if I worked my upper body yesterday, I even thought my body had different systems. I was like, well, my upper body's sore, but my lower body's not sore. So I can go kill that now. And then there's the emotions, there's being tapped from doing things that are emotional. I think we can all probably understand and associate what that's all about. Whenever we get emotionally drained, we can feel that in our whole body, but it's just kind of a reminder that everything is working together and in unison, and it matters. The biggest thing I've learned with like the functional medicine route is that not only from the uptake forms that you have to do before, they're asking things like, the questions are like, what do you remember? How was your childbirth? Things like that. They want to know what kind of imprinting's happening from the very beginning. So everything matters. And I suppose, if I'm going to sum up probably the sum of my health journey so far this year, is that initially it seems like, oh, my cycle's off. And then it's like, oh, maybe it's a thyroid. And now I'm like, okay, I actually think maybe now after all this testing, it might actually be the heavy metal toxins, because the heavy metals are reducing my gut health and liver function. And T4 is converted into T3, and T3 is the available energy that we use from the thyroid in the liver and in the gut. So if those things aren't working, it doesn't convert. It's not that I was low on T4, I'm low on T3, the available aspect of the thyroid that produces energy. And so anyway, the point is that it's very complicated. Everything is working in unison. And I think it really goes back to lesson number 1, which is rest. Like by default, rest. And I don't mean be a glutton. It doesn't mean and sit around and eat pizza and whatever else, but like you can walk as much as you want. So walking, sunlight, nourishing your body with really healthy things. I encourage people to take some tests, like take a blood panel, figure out what's going on. If you're going to pay for your health sooner or later. And, part of the advice from Ben just had a lot to do with, looking after your health as it goes and doing things weekly, monthly, quarterly, yearly, instead of getting to the point where it's all summed up into one. And that's kind of where I ended up, is it all got summed up into one. And I now will be on a much more frequent protocol with a lot of different things so that I don't ever have to be in this position again. But to sum it up, the body, it's just one motherboard system, and that by default, rest is a really smart thing. If you even think you're overdoing it, you probably are. Now I'd like to share the top 6, I would call them more biohacking modalities that I really believe in and that I've tested and that I've used or I've done. And I think they're really beneficial. So number 1, I totally believe in the Joovv red light, or whatever red light you want. I really believe in that. I think it actually, I don't know, call me crazy. I feel like it almost changes the texture of my skin and makes it smoother. But it's helping your mitochondrial function, and mitochondria is the powerhouse of the cell that creates energy. So anything that we can do to help with the mitochondria is a good idea. So red light, I'm sticking with it. Number 2 is infrared sauna. There's lots of good data out there about all of the more nitty-gritty details on what the infrared sauna does. But in general, it's really good for cardiovascular health, and it's also really good for detoxing. And I think in this sort of day and age that we live in, it's almost impossible to avoid toxins. Like we're walking outside to our car, we're getting on an airplane, you name it, there's toxins. And so to conjoin the sauna with also a little bit of binder too, I think is a great practice. Charcoal, clay, something like that to bind to, so that the heavy metals get excreted. Number 3, magnesium. Magnesium is just one of those things it's kind of hard to get enough of. Even in all of my blood tests and testing, magnesium is something that has been low in me, even with supplementation. So I would say that probably magnesium is another really great added supplement that it's hard to get enough of, that really helps you to feel better, energy, function. They're helpful for detoxification pathways too. So magnesium, great one. Number 4, vitamin D plus K2. Vitamin D is something especially, I think that if they say, if you're north of, I don't even know, it might even be like Atlanta, Georgia or something. It's pretty far south. But if you're north anywhere of that for a general portion of the year when it's obviously cold and snowy in some spots, you're just not going to be able to get vitamin D. You're going to have to supplement it. So there's some places you can get enough vitamin D, but even for me living in Arizona, I still didn't get enough vitamin D. And I mean, I go outside, I don't even wear sunscreen. So like, even if there was an idea that sunscreen was blocking vitamin D absorption, I don't really wear any. So I think a vitamin D supplement is an excellent thing to add on to your regular protocol. Number 5, the quality of your water. So I'm talking about everything from from what it comes in to what you put in it. So I currently have a little protocol with my giant jug, my gallon jug of water, where I add in minerals, I add in, sometimes I put electrolytes in there too. So I just like stack my water. I use a reverse osmosis system, to really clean the water. But of course, when you clean it, just like if you clean the body, you get rid of other things too. So, you're reducing the mineral content by nature with the reverse osmosis. So minerals, electrolytes, but really looking at the water itself, and then the container it's in. Like, I can't tell you how worried I was, how many friggin' plastic bottles of water I drank in my career. Like, I just got handed another water bottle and another water bottle and another water bottle. And that's what I drank in my bus when I'd be traveling. And I try and do a better job of refilling water bottles, not defaulting to getting a bottle of water out somewhere. I don't care if it's your Essentia or whatever, Evian, like it's still in a plastic bottle. So as much as you can do to get your water into glass and into water bottles, reducing plastics, I think is a great idea. So quality of the water is important. Therabody boots. Okay. So when I trained for the marathon, my friend got these Therabody boots. We went to the CrossFit Games and she loved them. And I thought, okay, fine. And they just pressurize from your foot, from your toes, all the way up to the top of your leg. And they release and they just keep cycling it. And to sort of flush your legs out and get them to not feel so sore. And so I didn't really believe in the boots until her and I ran. It was the last run we did in Chicago. And it was, I think we did like 16 miles or something like that. It was kind of like the last long run. We had already done 20. So it was like a little bit less. Maybe we even ran 14. It was kind of a warm day. Get back. We slip into the boots. And I mean, my legs are pretty sore. And running the 16 and the 18 and the 20, like my legs were pretty sore. But I put them in after that. And I went from not really being able to walk very well to walking just fine. And I was like, okay, wow, these things work. So especially like right after a hard workout, especially obviously if it's lower body, it's insanely beneficial. I'm talking about if you're doing your biking, running, weightlifting, you name it, anything with the lower body that's taxing, put these boots on afterwards I put it, of course, at like 30 minutes, max pressure. But anyway, it works. So Therabody boots are awesome. So those are my top 6, the red light, infrared sauna, magnesium, vitamin D, quality water, and Therabody boots. I've covered, my top 10 like health lessons of the year. I covered the more biohacking top tips and things that I'm going to stick with that I like. And then of course, a long explanation into the depths of more of my labs and all the things I have going on with Ben Greenfield. I think it's a good idea to just recap just in totality. So here are the top 5 best life practices. Number 1, eat real food. I mean, it's just simple. Just eat real food. Don't try and supplement, shortcut, but eat real food and eat mostly paleo. I mean, paleo is a great diet because it's mostly a whole foods diet. So, all else fails. I even think to myself, if I have time, if I'm running out and I have to grab something, it's like, should I eat a half of an avocado or should I just grab a bar? And you're like, just take the 2 seconds and just eat the avocado, like eat the real food. Even if like you're thinking, well, there's no protein in that. It's like, the body recognizes real food. So eat real food, and paleo is a great place to start if you're not sure what diet's best for you. Number 2, movement. Just move. Like honestly, just throughout the day. As I said, walking, you can do as much of that as you want, but also like just getting up in the middle of the day and just taking a walk. I think people probably wear wearables. I think they tell you to get up. They give you, step counts and stuff. That's all great. But anything to just kind of get up regularly throughout the day and just move around. One of the additional things I learned, I had talked about in my lessons that walking will reduce your blood sugar spike after eating. But what I found too was that not only just walking, but getting up. So if I got up and I did dishes, I cleaned the house, I did laundry, whatever it is, if you just get up and move around, it also does a pretty damn good job. So just general movement and walking is by default the best thing that you can do every day. get some movement, go for a walk, get in nature, get some sunshine. Number 3 most important thing is sleep. I add sleep because I know it's important. And I definitely was able to see with my Garmin wearable, like what it looked like with not recovering in sleep. And even my friends who did the marathon with me and wore their watches, they could see if they were getting sick. I mean, it was starting to indicate things like that. So I think that, sleep is obviously something to talk about. I'm only just sort of saying all this because I'm a pretty good sleeper, which I feel really fortunate about. But that's like the number one thing in life is just if you're not getting enough sleep, you should really figure out how to try and get more. And then if you're not able to sleep, you should obviously be trying to figure out how to get better. And, I do think that there's an emotional element to it. I mean, that's just my 2 cents, but there's a lot of stuff that goes on in people's heads and you do a lot of thinking. If it requires putting a notepad next to your bed so you can write things down, fine. But it also can get into the deeper levels where, there's just things going on in life and things that you're really questioning and worried about. And, all of that worry will make sleep tougher. Maybe you can't stay asleep. I've definitely had those waves where, I can fall asleep pretty easy, but I don't stay asleep and I'm waking up and I'm getting 5 hours of sleep and I wake up at 5 a.m. or 6 a.m. because I went to bed at 1 and I'm like, I'm up. And, I probably should be able to sleep more than that. So it's happened, but I generally am a pretty decent sleeper. But I also think probably if I have a top tip for sleeping is outside of the emotional stuff is make it cold. Make your room cold. I tell you what, I have slept. If the room is, I try and target 66 to 68. If the room, it should feel a little bit cold when you go to bed. But if the room is 70, 71, I mean, I'll know it. I won't be able to sleep. But if the room is like 58, I'll just sleep like a bear. Like it is not a problem if it's on the cold side versus the hot side. But if it's on the hot side, it's much harder. So there's a lot of evidence around this, but definitely getting the room cool enough, I think is like the top first tip I'd give anyone. Number 4 is stress management. So this is where like just mindful modalities come into it. And so, I mean, there's somebody that's going to be like, learn how to meditate. They're going to be like someone that's going to say something else. Someone's going to say, do your cold shower, do your sauna, do your whatever, do your gratitude practice, make your 5, things that you want to accomplish that day and what you're grateful for. There's a million different things that you can do. And the truth is that you just need to figure out which one works for you. So some people it's meditation, some people it's a walk, some people it's going to be, a gratitude practice. Sometimes it's prayer, whatever it is, you just got to figure out what works for you. And sometimes it's breathing. I mean, I had Wim Hof on, he talked about all the benefits of, breathing, and breathing is a super powerful tool. I mean, you can pretty much get yourself high with breathing. So that's another tool. So it's really just about what do you do to decompress? What is your stress management tool? For me, it's like a couple deep breaths really helps, and just a walk. Like for me, a stress management tool that's the best is just taking a walk. And probably because of what I've mentioned already, which is that lowers blood sugar, it's probably lowering cortisol, and it's relieving the adrenals from all the work that it has to do. So I do think that finding your stress management tool is critical, and it might take some time, but it's useful for life then. And number 5 is, in general, life is about perception. And I'm sorry, but that's all on you, AKA all on me. My life is my fault. Your life is your fault. It just is. It's the power of perception. And I know that like shitty things happen, but also, haven't we met those people that have shitty things happening in their life? And they're like, you know what? I'm really grateful. It's given me a deeper connection with this person, or I've learned so much, or I have things in perspective now. There's always a way to flip it. And it's okay to feel it for a minute. I don't think it's not about spiritual bypassing or acting like everything's okay and pushing things down. It's about looking at what's really happening and then going, give yourself a window. I don't know. Maybe I think I was listening to Tony Robbins say he gives himself like 90 seconds to worry about something. I give myself a day or two. So, I'm not Tony Robbins yet, but, give yourself a certain amount of time in which you're going to allow yourself to be in a space and then snap out of it and understand that your life is all about your perception, and that will trickle into everything else that happens in your life, because your perception becomes your energy. Your energy carries a frequency, and your frequency is attracting your world to you. So if you got a lot of problems, you're going to keep finding a lot of problems. If you feel amazing and you're really like loving and hopeful and optimistic, you're probably going to get a lot more of that and a lot more people of that same mindset. So eat real food, move all day, every day, get good sleep, figure out your stress management tool, and never underestimate the power of perception on your life.
Thanks everybody for listening to the Pretty Intense podcast today. I hope you enjoyed it. If you like what you heard today and you want to hear more, please click on the subscribe button.